Croatia, ranked 12th in the world by FIFA in the checkered red and white, have now qualified for their 6th World Cup. Having been a part of Yugoslavia until their independence in 1991, the first appearance for Croatia was France '98, where they stormed onto the scene. Drawn with two debutants and a former champion, it looked like Argentina were going to have an easy go of it, which they did, but Croatia surprised with 2 wins over Jamaica and Japan. Davor Sukerman quickly became the talismanic goal scorer, notching at least 1 in every game Croatia scored in. A 1-0 loss to Argentina meant nothing except that the debutants would face the Romanians in the round of 16. Suker stepped up to convert the pin for the game's only goal, and the dream lived on. The quarterfinal versus Germany is still considered one of the best games in Croatian history, and certainly one of the most memorable. A first half red card for Christian Burns resulted in a 3-0 trouncing in the second half for the Croatians, who would gain the nickname the Fiery Ones in the home media, or the Vatreni. Alas, the hosts awaited in a match that I watched over and over and over again, being one of the few I was able to record on VHS tape. Davor Suker, who also played for Yugoslavia in 1990, scored just before halftime, which was a common theme for them in that tournament, and gave an interview declaring it the best time to score, something I have never forgotten to this day. Unfortunately for the Croatians, Lilian Thuram comes out of nowhere for the only goals of his entire 14-year and 147 appearances career. A couple of thunderbolts to douse the Vatreni and relegate them to the 3rd place match. Dennis Bergkamp and the Dutch awaited after losing a heartbreaker to Brazil. Robert Prosinecki would open the scoring in this 2-1 win for Croatia, another player who featured for Yugoslavia 4 years previously, and is the only player to score for 2 different nations at the World Cup. It was a famous debut that announced Croatia as a mainstay on the world's biggest stage. After an undefeated qualifying campaign to make it to the Far East for Korea-Japan in 2002, the Vatreni struggled in their first match against Mexico, losing 1-0 to a penalty kick in the 60th minute. A strong 2-1 win over the Italians in the second game left them needing a win against Ecuador, but were up against it for most of the game, unable to reproduce the heroics of 4 years before. A 1-0 loss sent them back home. It seems that everyone has to face Brazil at some point or another in their World Cup history, and Croatia are no different. Opening up in Germany 2006 with a 1-0 loss, Qatar netted the only goal of the game. A drab 0-0 followed against Japan in Nuremberg, and it left them needing a win against the Australians in the 3rd match. A wild and energetic game from start to finish would end in a 2-2 draw, and it still lives in infamy because of the 3 yellow cards issued to the same man. Josip Simanic was eventually sent off, but only after receiving his 3rd yellow card. This one was a battle, remembered, but for all the wrong reasons, as it wasn't enough to see Croatia through to the next round. The men in the red and white checkers would not qualify again for South Africa, but were back once more in Brazil 2014, drawn against the hosts Mexico and Cameroon. The Vatreni would play in the very first game of the tournament versus Brazil, in a game that had its share of drama. It witnessed the advent of goal line technology and the free kick vanishing spray in the World Cup. It would also mark the first time the scoring had been opened by an own goal, and Brazil's first ever own goal given up at the World Cup. Despite going up 1-0 in this manner, Croatia were unable to hold on as Brazil came storming back 3-1. This set up a match against Cameroon where both needed to not lose to have any shot at progressing through in this round. An Alex Song red card on the stroke of halftime certainly helped matters, as they would go on to claim the 4-0 victory. Ivica Olic bagged the first, becoming the 2nd player to score in Cups 12 years apart, having netted in 2002. This left only the match against Mexico, in which they needed a win and nothing less. Goalless for 70 minutes, the game burst into life with 3 goals in 12 minutes for the Mexicans before Ivan Perisic got a consolation to end it 3-1 and send Croatia crashing out. Despite what could be called a favorable draw last time around, Croatia weren't necessarily expected to show the strength and resilience they did in Russia. The 2-0 win over Nigeria was a good start, going into the second match with favorites Argentina. A shocking 3-0 win sent warning to the rest of the tournament that Croatia meant business this time around. A 90-minute Perisic goal was needed to defeat everyone's second favorite team at this tournament, and they would win 2-1 over Iceland. They then settled in for 3 long games. After trading goals in the first 5 minutes with Denmark, it went all the way to penalties 1-1. Ivan Rakitic netted the 5th penalty to see them into the quarterfinal. The hosts were prepared to give them another wild game, and it went to overtime 1-1 after Cheryshev scored in the 31st and Kramaric equalized before halftime. A goal apiece in a thrilling extra-time bout sent them to penalties once more. Rakitic would emerge the hero in the 5th spot again and send them into the semi-final. England's best runs since they hosted the tournament were next up, and it will be another marathon, especially after Kieran Trippier put the Brits ahead 5 minutes in. It took an absolute Herculean effort over the next 63 minutes and would eventually bring them level to extend yet another match to extra time. Staring down a third penalty kick shootout, Mario Mandzukic came up big in the 109th minute to destroy English dreams of supremacy. Exhausted, depleted, but proud, the Vetrini belted their national anthem in a World Cup final, a mere 27 years after gaining independence. It was certainly a thrilling encounter with the French, who simply had too much in the end, and were more than willing for the back-and-forth shootout, not having gone to overtime in 3 straight matches. A soul-crushing 4-2 loss still saw Luka Modric named best player of the tournament, and Croatia cemented as a force to be reckoned with at the World Cup. A delicious-looking group awaits Croatia in Qatar against Belgium, Canada, and Morocco. Hopefully Modric and co. can reproduce his form of 2018 and channel the spirit of Davor Suker to rouse the troops in the famous checkered red and white kit. I know I'm always excited to see Croatia in major tournaments, especially the World Cup, where they've been providing inspiration and entertainment aplenty since their first ever match back in France '98. Look out, Qatar. The Croatians are back with a vengeance.